What's up, everyone? Welcome to Under the Arch Sports. I'm Eric.
And I'm David.
And this is our first video podcast for Under the Arch Sports. Hopefully you guys enjoy it. The first thing we're going to talk about today is really the only thing you can lead off with if you're talking about St. Louis sports. The Cardinals. At least 5 positive cases of COVID-19. Friday night's game was postponed. Saturday's game postponed. Dave, what do you think?
I don't know what to think, honestly. I know the commissioners come out and said that once we've started this thing, we're going to try to play it through. Other people have said the MLB might be close to shutting everything down because of the Marlins issue and the Phillies issue as well. It just depends on how fast COVID spreads. Personally, I believe they should just let it go, let everybody catch it, so you have the herd immunity thing going, and then you can just continue the season and not have to worry about it.
And see, that's the killer part is you have, because of the Marlins outbreak, and now I guess you can consider what the Cardinals have an outbreak. Because of that, almost a third of all the teams are affected just because of those 2 teams, Marlins and the Cardinals.
Right, you're talking about the East and Central divisions of both American and National League.
The thing to consider is there's no linking. The Marlins outbreak happened first. There's no linking the Cardinals to that. So it's 2 separate incidents, and that's a big problem for baseball. And I'm with you that there's a risk that they shut everything down, but they're going to wait as long as they possibly can to do that. And the reason is I think they can get away with shutting down everything for 2 weeks or whatever one time. If they have to do it twice in a 60-game schedule, I think the season's screwed and it'll just be done if they have to shut down a second time.
Well, and they're already talking about the games these teams are missing. They're going to play 7-inning doubleheaders. How does that look for things like fantasy baseball and other things like that? Not that that's like a key proponent, but when you're talking fantasy baseball as well, that's a huge financial commodity going on especially with gambling. So I don't know how you would with DraftKings, you'd fix all that in to it. You got to weigh all the options. I just hope the NFL takes a look at this and sees that maybe having all 32 teams in their own area might not work.
Yeah, I think what we're learning right now is that non-bubble sports is not going to work.
And it's not so much the sport itself, it's the travel and what you're doing on your free time. Can you control the players? Because a lot of these are just players going out and they're picking it up in the cities.
That has already come out for the Marlins. Is a bunch of their players went out in Atlanta just trying to have fun, as they put it. I know I read on, I think it was Power Mizzou, where Gabe DeArmond, the publisher there, was talking about baseball, and he said that he'd read something where an executive for baseball said the biggest concern was horny baseball players. And that's just really frustrating. Now, the one nice thing for the Cardinals with COVID striking the team is all the pundits are talking about COVID-19 and how the Cardinals schedule is going to go. And we're not talking about how terrible the offense is.
AKA Harrison Bader.
Yeah. I mean, defense is great. If he were a decent hitter, you could live with how reckless he is on the base paths on the rare occasion that he makes it there. But
he's hitting .091. That means he's had 1 hit in all his at-bats, basically. I mean, even Coach is playing better than he is.
That's terrible. I don't know how long they're gonna let him go. I mean, all the talk about the lineup and all that assumes that the team gets back on the field and the season continues with COVID. But yeah, Harrison Bader is just garbage at the plate. And at this point, it's becoming a proven commodity. You look at also, you're looking at Matt Carpenter at your DH. That's garbage. You're looking at Dexter Fowler, who's reliable in the sense that you know what you're going to get, but it's not that good. And then I don't know. The Cardinals offense is just so terrible. I've got the Cardinals average, the ranking for best batting average for the Cardinals pulled up. Right now through 5 games, and it's 5 games, Paul Goldschmidt is batting .316. The next highest batting average on the Cardinals, Tommy Edman and Dexter Fowler, both batting .250.
Well, and kudos for Dexter. He's not terrible like he has been in the past.
Right, but the point is the entire lineup sucks.
And it's a small sample size. They did just play probably the best team in AL with Minnesota.
Right. And that is the one thing you have to consider, but it's not encouraging.
Well, they didn't score any runs in their second game. In the first game, it was just a couple home run shots, really. They hardly had anybody on base.
No, it's just not encouraging. And it's what my theory is that the Cardinals front office has fallen in love with their own prospects. You know, if you go back to about 5-6 years ago, everyone's talking about the Cardinal way, growing all these homegrown players, and all of a sudden you never heard of them, and 3 weeks later they're an all-star. And I think Mozeliak, DeWitt, I think the whole lot of them, they fell in love with that idea, and they think too much of their own farm system. And you have these guys coming up, and they're not good enough. Bader is the perfect. Similarly, I think with Matt Carpenter, I think they paid him that money. So I think ownership's coming down and saying, we didn't pay him to sit on the bench, so he's going to play no matter what, I think.
I would counter that with the fact that they did cut Brett Cecil, even though he had that monster contract that was just asinine, if you think about it. But I don't know why they paid that much for a reliever in the first place, because he wasn't a closer. But Carpenter has looked a little better this year at the plate. Not saying it's a huge improvement, but when you're talking our minor league system, the trouble that bothers me is they do just fine in AAA, AA, whatever. They can hit. Then when they come up here, it's like they forget. And I don't know if that's our batting coach or I don't know what they're doing in the clubhouse. It's like they're overthinking things, and they just don't look for a pitch and hit. It's kind of like Bader. Bader strikes out on. He can't hit a curveball, but he's not looking for a curveball. I see no improvement with him whatsoever.
Yeah, with Bader specifically, that's the frustrating thing is everybody in the stadium, well, everybody watching TV this year, everybody knows slider away, curveball away. And they know it's coming. Bader has to know it's coming, but it doesn't matter. He can't do anything with it. He can't even foul it off and force the pitcher to throw a fastball.
Yeah, and I will say the two people I've seen take better approaches this year are Goldschmidt, who I think is just more comfortable around the club, because when you're switching to a new organization, you have all kinds of things going on. But the other person is Tyler O'Neill is not striking out like he was before. He's actually taking pitches. I mean, he's still going to get his strikeouts, but with O'Neal, he is what he is. He's a home run hitter. He has that power. He's not going to hit for average, and we expect that out of him. And I say so far with him, yeah, he's not hitting well, but you also got to remember the 2 games with Minnesota, we just got owned.
Yeah.
And it wasn't just him, it was everybody. But like against Pittsburgh, he was doing pretty good. And he's going deep in accounts and looking for pitches. Like, he seems to have a plan at the plate, but like I don't see that with everybody else. Right.
Now, the conspiracy theorist in me looks at this offseason, and it seems to have been the trend for like the last 3 years, where you'll hear DeWitt or Mozeliak talk about how we're not going to sit by and let all of baseball pass us by. We're going to be active, and we're going to improve the club. And then you go out and sign one reliever and do literally nothing for your offense except let Marcelo Ozuna go.
Well, and I don't really have a problem with our offense as much as I do with our starting pitching. Like, Garrett Cole was sitting out there. Why didn't they go after him?
Yeah.
Like, they were expecting Martinez, who's shown no sign of being a solid starter the last 3 years, to come back and all of a sudden be a solid starter.
Yeah, no.
Like,
it goes. I think that's a case. I talked about it with offense. I think it plays in with Carlos Martinez, the whole Cardinal way. Oh, a Cardinal prospect. He's one of us. He's a stud at AAA. He's our guy, and everyone else is in baseball saying this is a guy with great stuff, but he's an absolute head case. And he's had what? He came up in 2013, I think it was. 2014?
Something like that.
He's had like 7 years to figure it out.
And I know that. Well, and on that note, I know they didn't release the names, but I'm wondering if he's the one who picked up the virus.
Yeah, I don't know. Anyway, moving on. Let's talk a little St. Louis Blues hockey. The Blues are getting ready to open up their round robin leading up to the Stanley Cup playoffs. And that the system they've got in place for the Blues it makes sense on some level, but man, it really could screw the Blues over if they come out. All you gotta do is come out flat in 2 games, and the Blues could go from the best seed in the West to being it could be a wild card, 3rd seed, whatever.
Well, I don't think so. I've been listening to other pundits talk about this, and I watched the game Wednesday. It looked to me like they were told not to go all out.
Really?
And, like, what I mean by that is our normal system is like heavy hitting, physical, forechecking. They weren't doing a lot of that in that game. It looked like they were trying to get their legs underneath them and just getting into game shape. And granted, it was an exhibition game, so they're trying other stuff, just getting back into game shape. So I'm not too worried about a lot of that. Bennington looked good in net. I know they gave up 3. He gave up 3 goals, but he made a lot of spectacular saves too. And then there were some sloppy turnovers and things like that going on.
No, I'm not. The exhibition against the Blackhawks, that's in and of itself, it's not concerning. First exhibition after 4.5 months. There's no telling what's going to happen.
And don't forget the
round robin system in place. There's a chance the Blues could get screwed over.
Well, that, and the other thing you got to remember is Tarasenko's back.
Yeah.
And having him in the lineup is huge if he can get on track. So I think a lot of that game was just don't get injured and get in game shape. Sunday, I think we'll see a totally different game against the Avalanche. And I will say this, it is a round robin. The Blues don't have to worry about making it into the round of playoffs. They already have their bye or whatever. So
and that could be part of the philosophy that the Blues are having is hey, we're in. Let's take this round robin and get ourselves in shape. We think we can handle anybody that we're matched up against. That could be the philosophy.
Well, and in my opinion, if you're trying to win a cup, it doesn't matter who you match up against. You got to beat them all anyway. So if you're looking at their style of play, I think it's more important for them to get in the game shape. That way, when they do hit the actual elimination rounds, they can go full force and do what they need to do.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, there's teams you don't want to play, but it might be better if you face one of the harder teams early on. That way you don't have to play a 7-game series against them and then just tear yourself apart.
Yeah, in a way, the standings could change and it could hurt the Blues and all that, but it's a bit of an advantage playing the other top teams because you're playing better teams in your warm-up. If you're counting the round robin as a warm-up for the playoffs, which basically is, you're playing better teams, so you're getting a better, call it a workout. You're getting better training.
Well, and you know what you need to do in practice too to get into top condition.
Right.
So I don't know.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see how that plays Sunday, 5:30 Central Time. I think Fox Sports Midwest is carrying it. So unlike Wednesday night, hopefully Spectrum doesn't screw everybody over again. Evidently, there was a huge issue, and they were taking a lot of heat for that because a lot of people couldn't watch the game. So.
Really?
Yeah, they put it on ESPN Plus because the Cardinals game was going to be coming on later that night. And granted, both games were kind of a wash, but
right.
I think people wanted to watch hockey more than baseball at that moment.
Oh, the way the Cardinals were playing against Minnesota. Anyway.
But a lot of teams play like that against Minnesota, so.
Fair.
They won 106 games last year, so.
Yeah.
You got to keep that in perspective. They're a good team. And their lineup is like murderer's row.
Right. Now, moving on. The SEC announced that the conference is going to 10 game schedules, all conference games. And if you look at the SEC teams and their current schedules, everyone plays the other 6 teams in their division. You have the one permanent cross-division rival and then the rotating cross-division team. So for Mizzou, that's all the SEC teams, permanent cross-division rivals Arkansas, and this year's other West team was Mississippi State. So that'll be 8 of the 10. And what do you think about the whatever formula that the SEC is going to use to come up with a strength of schedule and use that to figure out the last 2 games?
Well, I would say we probably have one of the weakest schedules out of all the teams. Yeah. So we're going to end up with Auburn, A&M, or LSU, A&M, or Alabama, A&M, something like that. I do think A&M is going to end up on our schedule.
Right.
I don't know about one of the others, and I think that's just because of location. It's easier for us to travel than half the other teams.
Right. So for viewers who may not be following, the SEC is going to use a formula to rank the strength of schedule of all 14 teams based on those 8 games already in place. Based on that devise the 9th and 10th game for everybody. So in Mizzou's case, they play in the East, the weaker of the 2 divisions. Their permanent cross-division rivals, Arkansas, who is terrible.
For now.
And has Barry Odom on their staff, so they're going to be terrible. And the last team is Mississippi State, who looking at Mike Leach, looking at 5th place or so in the West.
They're a solid team, but they have to go up against LSU, Bama, Auburn, and A&M. So
right. So what that means is Mizzou's strength of schedule in the SEC is not good, meaning Mizzou's going to get matched up against really good teams. So I would imagine, my guess is that Mizzou will play one of LSU or Alabama and one of A&M and Auburn. And yeah, I would, if geography has something to do with it, and that would make sense. The geography might have something to do with it due to COVID. That would,
LSU
being so far west, that if you want to look at the westernmost teams, it'd be LSU and Texas A&M.
And one thing I was thinking about is, yeah, we still have to play them, but another thing we talk about with those teams, especially, is home field advantage. I don't know if there's fans. I don't know if there's fans in the stands, so that might actually benefit us because we don't have to deal with the fans. We just have to deal with the team on the field. And if that's the case,
I know in the Big Ten, Ohio State said they're going to play their games with 20% capacity. So 20,000 people in there, it's
still not going to.
That's smaller than Rupp Arena.
Yeah,
I mean, it's 20,000 people, but it's nowhere near what the Horseshoe normally is. So if you're talking about, Mizzou has to go to Death Valley, play LSU, and they're at 20% capacity, it's almost like a glorified spring game in a way.
Well, and you're talking about the fans being spread out, so you're not going to have compact noise right next to each other. It's like stadiums pumping crowd noise in on the speakers. It's not going to really matter. It's not going to affect the team at all. So it puts us in an advantage in the sense that we don't have to deal with the crowds that we would have otherwise on top of a good team. So it just allows us to focus on that team. Not saying we're going to win, but it gives us a puncher's chance, if you will.
What was that? You cut out.
Oh, it gives you like a puncher's chance, if you will.
Oh, yeah. No, if Mizzou's played at LSU and at Alabama both in the last 4 years, so having to go back to either one would be a bit of a bummer. But, we'll see what happens.
Well, and the other thing to think about is the games start September 26th, which is also an advantage because if one of those teams gets scheduled at the end of the season and has to come up to Mizzou, they're playing in the cold.
That is very true.
And if it's LSU, they're not used to that. So,
right. Now, the flip side of all this is that playing two of LSU, Bama, Auburn, Texas A&M, that is a gigantic opportunity for Coach Drink to come up with a signature win in year one of his program.
Well, any win besides Vandy, Kentucky is a signature win right now in our program. Especially because there's no non-conference now. You're talking – who knows with this team because we're in we have a quarterback debate going on right now because we don't know who's taking over. We have a whole new offense coming in. Probably our defense is most likely the same because we didn't change D coordinators. What is it? Weeders is still there.
Brian Walters.
Or Walters, excuse me, is still our D coordinator. So that's not going to change. Our defense should be somewhat solid, but our offense and our personnel are going to be totally different. So who knows what this team is going to look like.
We've seen Sean Robinson in spring games, and he looked all right, but never really see him in action.
Well, we have two totally different
as well.
We have two totally different style quarterbacks, or four actually. We got Tyler Powell and Bozak, who are more pocket passers, and then you have Robinson, and then I forgot who the fourth one was, who's more of a scrambler.
Right. And that's the key is if you're looking between Sean Robinson and Connor Bazelak, those are the common thought is one of those two is going to be the starter. First and foremost, is Bazelak healthy? He tore his ACL in the Arkansas game, the last game of last season. So that's the first thing that Coach Drink is going to have to figure out. How healthy is Bazelak? And then what will be very interesting to learn is what kind of system Coach Drink wants to run at Mizzou and what kind of wrinkles he's going to add to it based on the personnel.
So one thing I like –
or does you wrinkle it and just say, here's our system, we're going to implement it when we'll get personnel to make it work better later.
I was going to say one thing I like about Drinkowitz is every place he's gone, he's more of a spread offensive guy. That's what he ran to Appalachian State. But every place he's gone, he's changed the offense to the personnel. He knows how to adjust it to what he has to most effectively use that offense. He did it at North Carolina State when he was there for a year.
Right.
So I'm really curious to see how he installs the offense and what exactly it's going to look like as a spread offense this year.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised to see Missouri run a little bit of hurry up, a little bit like when Josh Heupel was our offensive coordinator and he used tempo to mask the fact that the offensive line sucked. You look at the offensive line from 2019, what was lost and what's coming back. I think offensive line has a lot of questions, and running a tempo offense could mask that a little bit.
Well, and I wonder how much the offensive line coach had an effect on the team last year too, because remember they switched coaches again last year, and it was essentially the same guys as the year before, and they looked totally different last year.
Right.
So our line could be totally different again, and they could be much improved or they could be the same. I don't know. I know we have 3 solid running backs who are all different types. You have your speedster, your power guy, and then your in-between guy, and they use all 3 of them. So I tend to think it's going to be more of a run-and-gun type offense, but run first to set up the pass. But it all depends on if they go with a scrambling quarterback or not, too. And if you have a scrambling quarterback, you can implement, like, speed options and things like that as well. So it'll be interesting to see which direction Drink decides to go with. And some of that might have to do with how well our line blocks.
Yeah, and one thing that you have to consider is Sean Robinson is definitely the more mobile of the quarterbacks, but it's not like Connor Bazelak is Drew Bledsoe back there. So if he demonstrates that he is mobile enough, maybe he just tears it up throwing the football, and Drinkwitz decides, Bazelak, better passer, and he's mobile enough to make it work, that maybe he decides to go with him over Sean Robinson.
And I think Bazelak did have some mobility, but the problem now is with his knee. Who knows what's going to happen now?
Yeah, I mean, the coaching staff are the only people who know, really.
And the ACL injuries nowadays aren't as detrimental as they used to be, because, I mean, look at who was it?
Well, if you go back about 10 years ago, Macklin.
Well, no, Macklin actually sped up after his injury, and then Hansborough had an ACL and MCL tear, and he came back and had that big old run at the end of the A&M game to seal
Henry Josie.
Thank you. I don't know why I said that, but Josie came back and had that run against A&M to seal off.
Yeah, he sealed the deal for the East in 2013.
Yeah. So, I mean, it depends on rehab for Tyler and how well he can move with that knee. Yeah, again, I don't know. And then it all comes down to what type of offense does Drink want to run. I know we pulled in a lot of offensive receivers in this last recruiting class, some of them JUCO guys who are coming in when he grabbed them in the spring and are already with the team practicing. So
yeah,
our receiving core might look totally different as well.
Yeah, and speaking of quarterbacks, one thing that was very interesting is because of COVID-19, Illinois high school football probably not happening in the fall. Looks like it's going to move to the spring. Well, East St. Louis quarterback Tyler Macon, Mizzou commit, has already announced that he is going to be an early enrollee. So he's going to be on.
Does that mean he's not? Sorry, go ahead.
He's going to be on campus when the winter semester starts. This assumes COVID, but
and that might be a benefit to him.
He'll be on campus.
That might be a benefit to him too, because then he doesn't have to worry about injury in his senior season.
Well, that, and he instead of showing up in the fall and having a month or 6 weeks to learn the playbook and all that while adjusting to life in college, he shows up in January. He's able to work on it during spring ball, all the summer camp practices, whatever. And then by the fall camp of 2021, he's been around campus almost a year. I think, especially with him playing quarterback, I think that is a massive win for Tyler Macon's chances and for the Mizzou program.
Well, and don't forget, that's an extra 6 months of weight training to get his body ready.
Yeah.
To take a beating in the SEC. So, I mean, you got to consider that as well.
Yeah. Now, talk Cardinals, talk Blues, talk Mizzou.
Oh, one thing we forgot about Mizzou. It was announced a couple days ago, all of Mizzou's basketball players are returning. So we have our full starting lineup coming back, which I don't know what to think. The talent's there. Can they pull it together? Kunzo had a Zoom meeting with donors and whatnot, and one of the things he said during that meeting was it comes down to these guys are trying to get to the NBA, but can they play for the team and not for themselves?
Right.
And I don't know the answer to that. Kunzo himself has had his struggles at Mizzou. If they somehow make it to a tournament, though, I think it's in his contract. He can't get fired. Mm-hmm. So I don't know what to think. I know the talent he's been bringing in is kind of and the development's been kind of there. I could see him putting a good team together, and I want him to do well. I just don't know if it's going to happen. His recruiting has been on a downtrend lately, and the team itself is just kind of like mentally wishy-washy, if you will.
Yeah, I kind of liken Jeremiah Tillman to Carlos Martinez. You see the talent, you know it's there, you see it in flashes, but it's just going on right here, where Carlos gets one bad call or a fielder makes an error and he just implodes. Tillman, I don't think he's a head case in the sense that he lets things snowball on him, but he doesn't have the discipline to play without fouling. He just doesn't. I don't know why. I don't know if his instinct to just hack is that strong. I don't understand it. I really don't. It's the most frustrating I've seen out of Mizzou basketball, and I don't know how long.
Before the shutdown, he played like 4 or 5 games without getting booted out when fouls. The problem is because of his size and where he plays right in the middle of the court, right in the middle of the paint, he gets called for a lot of stuff I don't even think he does half the time. I remember a couple of games towards the end of the season before the shutdown where they showed replays, and even John Sumfeld's like, I don't even know where the foul was. Like, he didn't even touch a guy and he got called for a foul. So I know that the other problem is because of his previous history.
Yeah, he's got the reputation.
Yeah, the refs are looking for fouls to call even if he doesn't make any, which
right?
also can aggravate him and get him derailed, and it affects his offensive game when that stuff happens. So,
Yeah. The problem that Mizzou has is there's a lot of problems with Mizzou basketball. The first one is just literally scoring the ball. You look at everybody on the team, their shooting percentage last year was horrendous.
like
From Mark
30%.
Smith all the way down. Now, they moved the three-point line back. Maybe that just wrecked Mizzou players so much worse than everybody else. Maybe Konzo Martin focuses so much on defense in practice that they just didn't shoot the ball enough to adjust. I don't know.
Well, even if they move the three-point line back, they should still be able to make their mid-range jump shots, and you're not even seeing that.
Right. And the thing is, everyone else had to shoot from that new three-point line. So I don't know. Maybe it was just luck, and maybe this season everyone's going to shoot 5% better, which doesn't sound like a lot, but that'd probably be 10, 12 points a game.
Shoot, that might be like 4 games.
Yeah. So beyond shooting the ball, specifically with the perimeter guys, you have Jeremiah Tillman down low. You have Mitchell Smith, and who else?
Parker Brown now.
All right.
He was a freshman last year. Showed some signs of.
My point is, are you ready for Parker Brown and Mitchell Smith to be your two guys down low with 5 minutes to go in a 2-point conference game after Tillman's fouled out? That terrifies me.
Yeah, not really. I want to see how Parker Brown improves this year. He needed to put it on some strength and size.
Yeah, no, he did not have
the footwork,
size or the physicality to
he
be
had the
able
footwork,
to.
He didn't have the physicality.
Yeah. So, yeah.
So real quick, expectations on going back to Mizzou football. What would your expectations on the season be with just conference only?
Oh, well, the first thing is I don't know if the schedule will stay the same in that games that would be at home are still going to be at home and road games still road games. We don't know if that's going to change or not. So that could have a small impact. Not as much, like we said, there won't be stadiums with 85,000 people, but all the travel and all that, we'll see. All that aside, assuming we're right and we're looking at games 9 and 10 being like in LSU and A&M or something like that, I feel like Missouri's going to be favored in like 3 games. So, frankly, 500 would be a bit of a win.
I would have said 4 games. I think we can beat Kentucky, Vanderbilt, possibly South Carolina, and I think we'll knock off one other one in there. Maybe Arkansas. Yeah, I'm forgetting Arkansas. So that's 4 right there.
Yeah. Other than that, it's going to take maybe Mississippi State.
Yeah, and that's just with what we saw last year. But we also now have a coach who knows how to make in-game adjustments. So I don't think we'll see a game like we saw against Vandy or Kentucky.
Yeah, that's going to be a nice change of pace, seeing a Mizzou football team that doesn't get progressively worse as the game goes on. Under Barry Odom, the first drive or 2 of each half, they come out guns blazing and look like world beaters. And then by the end of the half, the team would just look clueless half the time because Odom did not adjust as the other team did.
Yeah. So I would say 4 wins is what I would expect.
Yeah.
Would I be okay with that? Not really. I might be okay with 500 depending on who you beat.
Yeah, and see, it's weird to have to think about it, but if Missouri goes 4-6 in this 10-game schedule, that means that they probably would have won 7, maybe 8 games under the original 2020 schedule.
Right. Because you got your
that's the weird thing.
You got your 3 cupcakes and then BYU, who knows how that will turn out.
Yeah. Now it is worth noting that the Arkansas game originally going to be held at Arrowhead in Kansas City. Jim Stark sent an email out to donor season ticket holders saying that he anticipates that game being played in Columbia now.
Well, and again, I don't think it really matters if there's no fans.
So, right. I think it's just a travel thing and comfort. Wake up in your own bed type deal.
The other thing worth mentioning, only because I've been getting countless emails about it, and I know they've been putting it out there too. Mizzou's going all digital this year, so all your tickets are on your phones. So just be prepared. You can't. They're not accepting printed out paper anymore, so be prepared for that.
Right.
And that's not just for football. I think that's for basketball as well.
Well, and it'll cut down on the expenses of printing paper, and an athletic department like Mizzou, especially with COVID, has to find any way possible to save money.
Well, and avoid
Mizzou was in that position to begin with the fines from the NCAA sanctions, and just the way the AD had been operating.
Speaking of that, baseball and softball can play in the postseason next year.
Hey,
the ban is lifted.
Yeah. So that's encouraging, especially for Larissa Anderson and the softball team. Baseball, go to Hoover and get absolutely railed in the SEC tournament.
Hey, you know what? They seem to keep putting out pitchers in the pros. So
they do get pitchers.
For whatever it's worth, I mean, we're not a terrible baseball team.
Right.
I mean, it just looks like it because we're in the SEC.
Right. No, and Mizzou's baseball team is in the worst position of any program on that campus because of how big a deal baseball is in the SEC, combined with the fact that there are 2 Major League Baseball teams 100 miles in either direction.
And one of them's worshipped like a god.
Yeah.
So, AKA Cardinals. But, the other question I would have is what's going to happen with the bowl season this year, because a lot of the non-Power 5 conferences are opting out of the season.
Yeah, I don't think there's going to be any bowls except for the college football playoff. Yeah. I don't remember offhand which bowls are set to be the semifinals this year. I think the Rose Bowl will try and have their bowl game because they're the Rose Bowl and they think that they are God's gift to college football. So I bet they try and play the Rose Bowl. But other than that, I think it'll just be the college football playoff.
Can they play the championship in Vegas?
They ought to. No reason not to.
Yeah, why not? I mean,
the Raiders' new stadium ought to be done.
Yeah. So, and plus it's Vegas.
Exactly.
Anyway, that's all I have.
Yeah, we've been going about 45 minutes or however long. But yeah, that's it for episode 1 of the Under the Arch Sports video podcast. Dave, it was fun. We will see you, I don't know, next week, maybe. I don't know. We'll do this again.
Most likely. I don't know. We'll see you next week.
All right.
Real quick, one last background.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Since I'm wearing an XFL jersey.
A reminder to all our viewers that the Under the Arch Sports channel page, it all serves as an unofficial memorial to the St. Louis Battlehawks.
Caw.
Caw is the law.
That's right. I miss it, man. I hope it comes back.
I know. All right. That's all the time we have today. Hope you guys enjoyed it. We'll see you next time.
Take care, everybody.